Hey guys, sorry. Yeah, it's me. Okay, so from yesterday, remember we were trying to get it, oh gosh, into row echelon form. That's our main goal. Okay, what is row echelon form for those that need a little bit of a refresher? The first row is a 1 with a number, and then the solution's a number. It doesn't matter what the numbers are, it just gives us x and then the rest of the equations. The second row is 0 and then a 1 with a number, and the bottom row has to be 0, 0, 1 with a number because this tells us that z equals whatever that number is. Okay, so yesterday we struggled a little bit with the first example, and let me write it down real fast. As I'm writing this down, quick refresher, the numbers to the left of the bar, what do they represent? Think to yourself, see if you can remember. Yes, they are the coefficients to the variables. So since we have 3 numbers, right away we know that we're going to have a system of 3 unknowns. Okay, so Josh suggested that we switch the rows, which really honestly is not a bad suggestion. Okay, we could have worked with it, and after doing my solution yesterday, we were 1 step away from finding out what x was. Okay, so it definitely doesn't work. Josh, don't be mad. Okay, my goal always is to immediately get these 2 zeros. Because if I get those 2 zeros, then I have row 2 and 3 that I can manipulate to get the rest of the row echelon form with the 1s. The first row really doesn't matter because right now our first row, its first item, its first element right here is a 2. So if I need that to be a 1, I can just divide the whole row by 2. Boom, done. Okay, so don't stress about the first row so much. Try to focus on rows 2 and 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new row 3. I don't know why I did 2 arrows. What in the world? Okay. I'm going to create a new row 3 by multiplying row 2. Okay, so capital row 3 means the new row 3. Okay, remember capital is the new, little lowercase is the old. So I'm going to create a new row 3 by taking 5 times the second row and adding it to the third row. Because right away I see that that's going to cancel out that first element. Okay, so in doing so, my first row stays the same. So I'm going to rewrite that 2, 5, 1, negative 12. The second row I'm not manipulating yet. We're going to do that next. And then here we go for the third row. So 5 times negative 1, because it's the first element in the second row, is negative 5. Plus 5 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 0 is 20. Now we got rid of that 0, but that's okay. We can get it back. And then 5 times 3 is 15. Plus negative 2. Oh gosh, sorry, I was looking at my answer key incorrectly. It's 13. What? And then 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. Plus negative 13 gives us negative 33. Okay, so we have our first 0. I want to, now, let's see. Okay, so now let's get the second 0 in the second column. I'm going to create a brand new row 2. Okay, and I'm going to take 2 times the old row 2 and add it to the old row 1. Now, row 1 isn't changing yet. Okay, so we have 2, 5, 1, negative 12. And then we've got, sorry guys, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 2 is going to be 0. Remember, we're working from this one. We're working from the old matrix still. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 5 is 13. And then 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 gives us 7. And 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, plus negative 12 is negative, oh my, sorry about that, negative 20. And we didn't manipulate row 3 at this time. Keep in mind, you can always do 2 row operations at one time. If you want, I'll show you that on the next go around. Okay, so we need to get rid of that 20 because row echelon form says that this is a 0. All right, so I'm going to do something a little funky. Stick with me. I'm going to create a new row 3, and I'm going to do it by multiplying negative 113 by row 2, because notice that's going to give me a 1. 13 or negative 1. 13 times negative 1/13 is negative 1. Okay, and then I'm going to add that to a negative 1/20 times row 3, because negative 1/20 times 20 gives you, oh, we don't want negative. So that, because our goal is to add them together. There we go. Okay, so let's give it a whirl and see what happens. So the first row is 2, 5, 1, negative 12. And then we get 0, because this isn't changing yet, 13, 7, negative 20. Okay, for those of you that need to see what's going on. Okay, 0 times negative 1/13 plus 0 times 1/20 is going to give us 0. All right, for the second element, we have negative 1/13 times 13 plus 1/20 times 20. So that gives us negative 1 plus 1, because these are going to reduce, and that's how I get the 0 in the second element of the third row. Okay, you with me still? I hope so. If not, you've paused, rewound, I don't know. Okay, so then the second part, we have negative 1/13 times 7 plus 1/20 times 13. Okay, so negative 7/13 plus 13 over 20. Now, it looks awful, but we have calculators, let's be honest right now, okay? And we know that common denominators will allow us to add these fractions. So my common denominator is 260. That's the one I'm going to use. I think, honestly, that's the closest. Yeah, I think that's the smallest. Okay, so then I need to multiply the left fraction by 20. So I get negative 140 over 260. I need to multiply the right fraction by 13. So I get 169 over 260. When I add that, I get 29 over 260. Ugly? Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's write that in here, because that's now our third element. The last one, I'm going to do it below these guys, is we're going to take negative 1/13 times negative 20, because we have to use the solutions too, okay? Plus 1/20 times negative 33. Okay, so we get 20 over 13 minus 33 over 20. Okay, again, 260 is our common denominator, so multiply the left side by 20. We get 400 over what am I writing? 260 minus the right side we have to multiply by 13. So we get 429 over 260. When we subtract, we get negative 29 over 260. My, that looks familiar. Okay, now our goal is to have a 1 where the 2 is, have a 1 where the 13 is, and have a 1 where the 29 over 260 is. Well, the only way that I can think of to get a 1 where the 29 over 260 is to multiply it by its reciprocal. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take old row 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 260 over 29. And I'm going to do 2 row operations at once. I'm going to create a new row 2 by multiplying it by its reciprocal as well. I know, poor row 1, we're not doing anything with it. You're coming next, row 1. Okay, so 2, 5, 1, negative 12. Okay, here we go. Row 2, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 13, so 1 over 13. So 0 stays the same. 13 becomes 1. 7 becomes 7/13. Negative 20 becomes negative 20/13. In the denominator. In the last row, we're going to multiply it by the reciprocal as well. So we get 0, 0, 29 over 260 times its reciprocal is a positive 1, and then negative 29 over 260 becomes negative 1. The last thing we're going to do is, hey, row 1, we're going to multiply u by 1/2. Again, our goal is to get a 1 in that first spot, so it only makes sense that we're going to multiply it by 1/2. So it becomes 1, 5/2, 1/2, and then we get negative 6. In the second row, we have 0, 1, 7/13, negative 20/13. And the last row, we have 0, 0, 1, negative 1. This is, ladies and gentlemen, our row echelon form. We're not trying to get reduced row echelon form, okay? We want row echelon form where there is a 1, a 1, and a 1. And the reason being is because, that means that z, that last row, z is equal to negative 1. And then we substitute from there. So the second row says y, I'm going to erase that, that bothers me. The second row says that y plus 7/13 times z is equal to a negative 20/13. Okay, substitute it in. So y plus 7/13 times negative 1 is equal to negative 20/13. So y is equal to negative 20/13 plus 7/13, which is a negative 13/13. Ladies and gentlemen, y is just negative 1. Yay! Okay, now in the numerator, here we go. So we get x plus 5/2 y plus 1/2 z is equal to negative 6. Okay, so x is what we're solving for, plus 5/2 times negative 1 because we found that to be y, plus 1/2 times negative 1 because we found that to be z. So we get x minus 5/2 minus 1/2 is equal to negative 6. And then we get x minus 6/2. This is going to work out super nice again. So that's x minus 3 equals negative 6, which means x is negative 3. Rad. Final step is to write it in alphabetical order, coordinate form for a three-dimensional. So negative 3, negative 1, negative 1. And we are done. So see, it only took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. And we could have done some of them at the same time. Okay, so our goal again for for row echelon form, remember, is to get the zeros on the left first, because then we can work from there. However, that is totally just my opinion. Agree, disagree, it's up to you guys, okay?